All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Say it. Say it. Thank you. Howdy. I'm glad to be here. I invite you, if you're my student, I demand that you please put your phone on airplane mode, please. Thank you. So we can talk and not be interrupted by that. I want to talk a little bit about, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to talk about, but I want to thank Dr. Dow for taking leadership in the Skills Center, which sponsors this series. The afternoon discussion series is a fixture of Hendrix since I've been here, and that's many moons. And I think it's a vital part of Hendrix culture. And so I really hope that if you're not in the habit of coming to these, and you can, I hope you will come to them because they're really good and important. And I'm delighted and honored to be here today with you. My name is Chris Campolo. I teach philosophy here. Most of you are my students, so you know that. So when you're late, that's what happens. Yeah. Sure, but here you are late. Anyway, so I want to talk about the past a little bit. I'm not a historian. Sorry, Dr. Scope. I will. I'm going to poke in the past a little bit, and I'm going to talk about the present a little bit, and then I'm going to. I hope we're all going to talk about the future a little bit. Yeah, and it's about athletics at Hendrix, and I want to say a couple of things. And one of those is I do not want to disintegrate. I do not want to disintegrate the student athlete. I think we are disintegrating the student athlete, and I want to show you how we're doing that. My goal, people have been coming up to me saying, I have an idea. Get them on a bus and tell them they're going to a game, but don't drive to a game. No, I'm not trying to get rid of the student athletes. I love you. Who's a student athlete here? Some of you are. Okay, I love you. I love you, and you're part of our community, and you're students here, and we want the best for you. We want everything for you that we want for everyone. And part of this talk is kind of comes from thinking about how we can do better at inviting that to happen. Yeah. Okay. Given where we are, so I want to talk about some things like that. What else did I want to say? Marvin the Martian on the poster has the little disintegrator. I don't know, the pistol. Mars is an open carry state like Arkansas. And the pistol is the Acme disintegrator gun, if you ever see it close up. It's the Acme disintegrator. He's always, I don't know why he's so angry, but he's always trying to disintegrate people in the cartoons. That's from when I was a kid. Who's seen Marvin the Martian? Somebody? Okay, so reruns. This is from the Hendrix webpage. There, it's proof. This is my PowerPoint. I decided to keep it to myself. PowerPoint I find is very disintegrating. Who do I pay attention to? Where do I look? Am I listening? So I just made it for me. This is from the Hendrix webpage. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to reveal the scandal. It says 1941 to 1945, sort of a history of Hendrix. Listen carefully. World War II greatly affected Hendrix male faculty and student enrollment. Intercollegiate sports were dropped or curtailed. Intercollegiate football was discontinued, but sports continued to be emphasized through intramurals and the Department of Health and Recreation. If you listen to that, it sounds to me like they're saying that World War II led to a bunch of guys going off to war and therefore no more football, but we still stayed active. Does it sound that way to you? My friends, that is a cover-up, a filthy cover-up. And it's a shame because it's covering up a very interesting moment in Hendrix history. You could find that moment if you knew where to find it in the San Antonio Light. That's a great newspaper name, back when newspapers could be confident. The San Antonio Light in January 6, 1941 has this story. I will read some of it to you. Title, Collegiate Football Dropped by Hendrix, 1941. Athletic Director Ivan H. Grove announced Monday that Hendrix College would drop intercollegiate football competition next season and would use funds earmarked for this sports in a year's experiment with an enlarged program of recreational and sports education. That's interesting and weird. Grove said the school, a Methodist institution of about 500 enrollment, did not propose to drop intercollegiate competition in other sports. Also interesting and weird. In a written statement, and now we have Dr. J.H. Reynolds building named for him over there. There was a building named for Grove too, but now it's the SLTC. In a written statement, Dr. J.H. Reynolds, college president, asserted that he and the college staff, including members of the athletic department, were strongly convinced that intercollegiate football, as now conducted in American colleges, has very little educational value. During a period of self-examination and perhaps change in policy, Hendrix will conduct an experiment in making recreation a distinctly educational function. So do you hear that? What you hear is, we have a problem. We're not sure how the intercollegiate sport fits with the educational mission. And we're not sure what recreation has to do with any of those things. And we're going to try something because we're Hendrix and we're weird. Those were the days when Hendrix was weird. How was it going? How did it go, this experiment? Let's find out. 1942, January 30th, about a year later, in the Maryville Daily Forum out of Missouri. Here's the headline, a little hard to understand. Implied subject, colleges can take pointers from Hendrix College that de-emphasized sports. What do they have to say? A year later, right? Any college looking for a way to remold its athletic program because Uncle Sam is getting its fleetest and brawniest. Some schools were hurt by World War II with their football programs. But I'm going to show you in a minute why that was not us. So don't think that I'm wrong about the cover-up, because it is. Can take a few pointers from Little Hendrix College, that's a typo, which de-emphasized intercollegiate sports experimentally a year ago. With an enlarged intramural program, this Methodist institution of some 500 enrollment has increased student participation in sports from 52 to 93% for men, and from 30 to 86% for women. Everybody is involved in sports now on the intramural level, yeah? Here's a quote from Ivan Grove, who was the athletic director. We saw him in the earlier. I believe that there's really more enthusiasm and interest in sports on the part of the student body than before. I'd just like to see you, I'd just like you to see the school get worked up over the annual freshman-sophomore football game and some of these intramural basketball games. I have heard over and over again this statement, you know, we don't miss football like I thought we would. Another statement voiced by many is, I really enjoyed Hendrix this year more because I feel like I'm more a part of the college than I was last year. Hendrix didn't rush into the de-emphasis program, Grove said. The college undertook the change after 3 years of study and research on the part of the institution's policymaking committee. That's before the war. So this was in the works. This was in the works for years. And now we're claiming success with this experiment. The purpose in adopting the new plan, said President J.H. Reynolds, there he is again, was to provide a more wholesome and stimulating program than the old spectator sports type in which only a small number of men actively participate. That's interesting now. Now we're not talking about the lack of educational value. Now we're talking about the lack of participation in the thing. That's interesting, right? I'm just going to read you one more little snippet from this article. I'm skipping stuff, 2 more little snippets. And if you're suspicious, you should ask me and I'll send you the whole article. You should be suspicious. You're only reading this part of the article? What's up with that? Ask me. I'll send it to you. All-inclusive program. The intramural program is all-inclusive. Now this part is weird. Just go with it. Students are assigned to classes suited to their individual needs and interests, as shown in observations during a physical training program required during the first 2 years. Okay. In these courses, certain skills are taught for group and individual sports. Sports on the 1941 and 1942 program include tennis, basketball, 6-man football, roller hockey, volleyball, table tennis, golf, tug-of-war, track, softball, bait casting, pool, wrestling, boxing, horseshoes, handball, touch football, tumbling, badminton, and weightlifting. 90-something% of the men, almost 90% of the women in the college involved in this. Yeah? All these different things. College had money for. One last quote here. All in all, there are no regrets for abolishing intercollegiate football, Grove summed up. The faculty is sold on the need and the value of the new program, and the students are definitely making the most of it, and the faculty respects the wisdom of the change and is cooperating wholeheartedly. What a weird moment this was. What an interesting experiment this was. Let's try recreation for all instead of a few people playing, a lot of people watching. It's interesting. I'm not suggesting it. I'm saying it's an interesting moment. It came from a kind of tension. It came from a kind of question. How do we make this fit better? It doesn't seem to fit well. And so part of what I want to tell you is, if you feel some of the tension and questions about athletics now, this is part of Hendrix. The Hendrix conversation for many, many decades is, we're wondering how this should work. How can this fit? How does it, is something awkward? Let's try stuff. Yeah? It's an ongoing thing. Football is back by 1946, gone by 1956, back in the 60s, gone in the 60s. So it's a thing. We're struggling. We're asking. We're trying to figure out how to make this work. Yeah? That's our past. That's who we are. Let's talk about now, our present. It's the college motto, unto the whole person. Who's heard it? Good. Who wants to tell me what it means? Excellent. I don't know what it means. I have ideas. I've thought about it for a long time. Let me tell you a secret. I shouldn't say this. I'm glad none of my superiors are here. Are they? I'm glad none of my superiors are here. I want to tell you, where are they? Why aren't they here? I want to tell you the secret that I probably shouldn't tell you. One of the weirdest things about being a faculty member at a small liberal arts college is everybody who shows up is in for something that they don't understand yet. And they didn't come here for it. It's not like high school. It's not like elementary school. There's almost nothing like liberal arts education. And there's no way to tell you what it's like before you get here. And so we lure you with a brochure that has Frisbee or with an offer to play a sport, but you don't know what it is that you're in for. And here we are as faculty focused only on that thing, which you don't understand yet. It's weird. It's a weird thing. Imagine going to the mechanic to do something besides getting your car fixed, and the mechanic's like, how do I convince them that they need this alignment problem fixed? It's weird. But here we are. How do I show you what a liberal arts education is when you don't know what it is, and yet here you are? I think part of the way we show you is we give you lots and lots of invitations to try a lot of different things. We try to make it clear that this is not just sitting in a class like high school. It's a kind of ethos. It's a kind of like full on learn everything you can. Try everything you can. Imagine everything you can. Talk about everything you can. We're trying to give you all sorts of hints and clues. Who's here for extra credit? Put your hands up. No, don't lie. Who's here for extra credit? Hints and clues and bribes. Hints and clues. Who's here from guilt? Good, good. Thank you. I worked hard on that. One person. I begged some people, they didn't show up. They didn't show up. Where are they? Tori, thank you. So, Tori, thank you. We're trying. You need to be open to this, and we have to catch you in your most open time. I think Explorations was put in place to try to give you more hints about this. We're trying to sort of talk to you and have the Hendrix today with all these things, and we're hoping that you'll see something and just go sit there at a meeting you've never gone to or thought about, a book group with Dr. Rosinski, or a poetry reading in the Murphy House, or Friday afternoon discussion, Wednesday afternoon discussions now, something like this. We're trying to hint to you that this is about something more. It's about trying to become a whole person. A whole person. But it's very hard for that to work if every single one of your hours outside of the classroom is over there at practice. The reason I call this disintegration is because when I was talking with a student about this recently, they said, I feel like this. I feel like this. You're telling me all these things I need to spend time on and think about and be open to, and they're telling me I've got all this I need to do over there. I need to practice. Yeah? Okay. Disintegration. We're trying to make a whole person, but what we've got set up here is disintegrating us. You get me? Say one more thing about that, and then we'll talk. If you've played a sport for a long time, you know a hell of a lot about it. And you know something that you don't realize is a skill, but it is a skill. You know how to be loyal to it. You know how to do your duty by yourself and your teammates and your coach. And you come with that ready. You do not know how to be loyal to liberal arts education because you've never even seen liberal arts education. And sometimes it looks like high school, and loyalty is not a high point there, right? You don't know how to be loyal to and open to and duty bound to liberal arts education for yourself or for your community because it's not even a real thing to you yet. But you do know how to be loyal to your sport because you're used to that and you've been doing it since you were a kid. Now, when I say, please come to this event, and some athlete says, and I shouldn't pick on athletes only because, boy, try to get out of choir practice. Oh my God. I got to be at practice. This is what they say. And I say, oh, come on. You can skip a practice. And their eyes get big like, and you hear the, I've never had that thought and I will not have it now. I'm being loyal. And then I say, you know what? This is a problem because your coach has to realize, and they say, I know, it's really hard. My coach is such an asshole. But you know what? I've learned something recently. It's not your coach. Your coach is actually pretty on board with you taking some time off to do some other things. We can get around your coach. Your problem is, my problem is, your inner coach. Your inner coach is very strict. And it says, don't let the team down. And it says, don't miss a practice where you could be learning stuff. Now, when you take off on Friday to go on your travel games, there is no inner Chris saying, class needs you. Oh, is that funny? Because that's how I feel. I feel like, oh my God, you're leaving us here. Like, that's as real to me, your presence and the role that you play in the development of our conversation and the way that it builds your skills is as real to me as your development as a player and the development of your skills and the role in your team. So here I am going like this when you miss a Friday. Good, Friday, miss it. Miss the class, fine. No, that's fine. I don't know, it's fine. And your coach probably makes similar sounds. No, that's fine, whatever, okay. No, I get it, education, it's important. Right? Knowledge is good. It's very similar, but you don't know how to value the one yet because you've not had any practice in it. I need you in that class. I'll do without you, but I need you there. But it's okay, but it's not okay. And that's exactly how it is with the sports. It's your inner coach, though. Maybe in some cases it's the actual coach. I mean, maybe some coaches are like this, but in my experience, a quick email to a coach gets a, yeah, of course. Your inner coach is strict, yeah? And this is an issue. I couldn't get Garrison to come here today with extra credit, and I offered him 10 extra credit points. 10. That's, in my class, that's a whole grade. And what Garrison said was, I don't need extra credit. I'm doing great in here. And I was like, dick move. He doesn't need extra credit. He is doing great in there. But when I said, now I'm dropping your grade to a C, I bet you want the extra credit now. What did you say? You remember?
I believe I said something along the lines of, I'm still passing for one, but.
I'm still passing. And I want to go to practice. And I know the coach is okay with me not going to practice.
Correction about that. We'll say, at least from a Coach Buck Buchanan mindset. If he found out that I went from a 98 to a C like that, he'd have had me. But he'd have had me neck in hand. He'd have killed me, and he would have been making me come to this thing. That's
Okay. He would have actually been making you come to this. He's okay with you being here. Now, what was your resistance, even though we both suspected he'd be okay with this? Tell me, what was your resistance to missing practice like you are right now? And I'm very grateful.
I personally, and it's come from a long life of not being very committed to really anything. I didn't get into football until the 8th grade because all my buddies were in it, and I found myself alone while they were at practice. So I went to go play football, and I wasn't dedicated for a while. And I don't know exactly what really hit the switch in my head that made me focus on it, but I'm glad that it happened. And I became a team leader on my high school team. I was very into it. Never missed a practice, workouts, never late. And it just became something in my head and also in my heart a little bit that like I need to be the kind of like team player who's always there. So I guess that's it.
That's beautifully put. In my heart, in my head, and in my heart, I need to be the kind of team player that's there. Your first year?
Freshman year.
And you are a team leader now. Say it. Say it.
I'm trying to be a team.
Yeah, see that? That's impressive. That's intense. That's real. You feel that. The coach is not making that happen. Something in you is making that happen. And what I need is to try to get you to feel something like that about something called being a whole person. And that's hard because I don't have the time with you. Everybody's thinking about it differently. And it's hard to get, there's no parade, there's no cheering crowd, there's no fancy uniform, there's no, we eat together at lunch, there's none of that glue that holds teams together so well. I think a very interesting moment of commentary happened on that most subtle and balanced of forums about Hendrix. Yik yak. I want to leave you. I want to start the discussion by reading this to you, and you can tell me what you think. What? What? I'm not supposed to be on Yik yak. Too bad.
I'm just hoping it's not something I said.
Wow. I'm hoping it's something. I'm also hoping that, Janet. About a day ago. I'm just going to read this. I didn't write it, right? It's real. Are the football guys really that addicted to groping balls that they can't skip one game for a party? Response number 1 goes like this. Tell me you've never played a sport or fully committed yourself to an organization without directly telling me. There it is. There it is right there, right? The dedication, the duty, the sense of commitment, the feeling of being part of a team. That's good. It's magical. I want that for you. Yeah? But it is difficult because it is, in some ways, to get that going in tension with another claim on you that I think you own as a Hendrix student, which is to have something like that connection to a liberal arts education. I'm not saying that there's I don't think we can do what they did in 1941. All intramurals. I don't think I want that. I don't think any of you want that. I don't know what to do. I want to get some of that goodness that you feel about team sports, some of that energy, some of that direction, some of that loyalty. I want to get some of that. I definitely want some of that. I also want to get myself better at articulating to you why you should feel some of that and how you should practice some of that. And we're gonna have to work together to think about ways that this might work a little better than it is. You with me? All right, so let's talk now. Questions, thoughts, opinions, desires, attitudes, beliefs, complaints? What? In the back. Amber. Yep.
Random observation. I'm thrilled that so many of you recognize the Martian from Looney Tunes.
It's so, yeah, such an iconic part. Good. What else? Yep, Al.
So on the coaches thing, I was talking to one of my buddies who's on the soccer team, and he was actually telling me like if you were to miss practice, there would be like nonverbal repercussions, like not direct
Good.
things,
Good.
but like the coach would,
Good.
you know, he'd let you know that he's like, I'm not happy.
Good. I think that's very real. And I think that there's also another thing that happens, which is the very subtle shift from you being a player this weekend to maybe not. I know that's a worry. I know that's a risk. And I know, and this is going to sound melodramatic, I know that in some sense, you're very likely at the end of your playing days. Hendrix is probably the end of your hardcore playing of this sport. You might be a coach, you might play in an adult league, but the beginning of your career as a chemist, right? So maybe we should just back up, right? Okay, we should maybe back up and say, I get it. You don't want to miss field time. I get that, and I think that's real. And I think the coaches are humans, and I think just the way I smirk at you and say, go Friday, go ahead, take your trip, go on your trip. The way I do that is probably the same way a coach feels. Like, no, go, do your thing. Don't worry about us. We're fine. I think it's a problem, and I think we need to acknowledge it. I think we all need to talk together, coaches and faculty and you, about what's going to be okay. And I know that some of you blame the coaches when you shouldn't, but you like to feel like you've got someone to blame. And I know probably to the coaches you blame us. I gotta go, coach. He made me go. Okay, I'm not saying anything is bad about this. I'm just saying we need to get better at this conversation, because that's a scary thought. Here I am going to, Campolo said, come to the thing, and now I'm not going to play on that. Or now I'm going to have to, I want some team, it will go unnamed tennis. If they are, no matter how many minutes late, they run laps for every minute late they are to practice. No matter why they miss. It's not okay. We need to be having a chat about this. Somebody had their hand up.
Yep. Well, I'm very motivated by the idea of fostering a sense of loyalty and enthusiasm about education and the liberal arts.
Good.
I think that by the time students get to their senior, and just by the way, I'm a faculty member, so yeah, I think by the time
In your
students-
faculty uniform.
in my faculty
Yeah.
uniform, that's exactly right. But by the time students get to their senior year, many of them have that. I think that a challenge that we have is getting these students who come in with a history, a connection, a culture, and a loyalty to this sport that they've been doing for, let's call it 12 years. And then we're like, okay, now you have to develop that in this completely new place, just like you're saying. And it's really hard for them to do both. And then maybe they don't come back for the second year or the third year and get to that point. Like, I guess I'm just making an observation in my own history, right? And being a faculty member, being a graduate of the college too. But like, we see people get there. How do we do it faster? How do we get them there faster? And I wonder if students have thoughts around that, especially if you're a junior or a senior. I don't know who's in here. I'm specifically not looking at students right now. But like, how can we do that then?
Yeah, I think faster is a really interesting question, because a lot of times by the time you're a senior or a junior, like, I wish I could start this over. I get it now. Now I have to be done with it, but now I get it. Yeah, and it's, by the way, athletics is not the only thing that people fill up their schedules with and become so busy looking at you, Megan, that they struggle with how to make this all work. Does anybody have thoughts or ideas on that? If you have questions, ask them. If you have thoughts on how we can maybe ramp up the understanding faster, let's bring those up too. Okay, I'll go there and there.
So I feel like this isn't necessarily a thought on how we could ramp that up, but maybe an idea on why it's so much harder to switch that to the academics.
Tell us.
Is because since we were tiny children, even in kindergarten, our knowledge and classes have been quantized through numbers and is only a numerical thing, and not necessarily saying this is you actually developing yourself. It's more of, here's a number on just this, instead of an actual like mental connection or emotional connection to
I
it.
think you're so right. I think that so much of getting to college is learning stuff. And then when you get to college, what we want you to do is now play, intellectually play. Let's do this for real, not just learn it, let's do it. And I think it's hard to know what that means. Like I've been treated like I've got grades, I've got GPA, I've got applications to write, and it just feels so similar, and it's so hard to know.
Going back to what you said about trying to find balance to outside the classroom and with the inside the classroom, I've noticed that when I try to focus more on my study and miss practice, I'm stressed about missing practice. And then when I go to practice and maybe don't study as much for an exam that I wish I could have, I'm stressed about the exam. So I struggle finding a balance between being on top of my schoolwork and being the best student I can, and still being the best athlete I can. I think trying to find that balance is what I'm struggling with.
You just put it exactly right. This is the disintegrate. This is how you disintegrate the student athlete. But I'd like to say, so I think that was beautifully put. I want to say something. It's not just class versus sport. It's the whole ethos of there are many, many, many things to be doing. Not just class. Some of them are completely different from class, and you can't get to any of them if every other hour is practice. Class and practice. Don't make it a binary. It's a million things. Class is one thing. And so the balance is actually much more complicated. And we should probably say, if you're older than college age, you know, balance in life is hard. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna get past this. Balance in life is hard. So we've got this issue. You put that very well. I saw a hand. Yeah, Ken.
So like I've been playing tennis since I was like 4, and I played like competitively in high school. And part of something that I like actually tried to do was like just in my like personal thing that when applying to college, I was like my whole goal was just to not mention tennis because I didn't have an identity crisis, but I know I was close to one because I had been doing this every day for hours after school for years. And so I was really lost about that. And I mean, like, again, it's just kind of overwhelming to mix the two and be good at both school and sports. And so I just like it's kind of back to the unto the whole person thing. Like, am I playing tennis here? No. Could I have? Probably. Am I going to? I don't think so, because I can still play tennis, but I can do other things now.
That's a seriously reasonable set of choices you've made to try to navigate this, right? It's one way to go, and I can see in the way you said it, there's some regret there about not doing this the way you used to do it, right? And on the other hand, a sort of sense of I needed to do it. That's like jumping off a cliff. I get it. I don't want you to be in a position of jumping off a cliff. I think there's probably a way in the future to reorganize big chunks of this if we think imaginatively and not get stuck with the inertia of how we've done it. There's got to be a way. It's not going to be like tinkering around the edges. This is going to be big, right? But nobody should be feeling like, who am I? Decide now, freshman year. Decide what I'm applying. Who am I? That's not what we want. Part of liberal arts education is becoming able to be lots of things, not choosing a narrow thing. Dr. Dinsky.
I think that we use the word identity, and I think that's as important as the word loyalty, because we are committed to our sense of self, and it is scary to give up that bit of self, right? And commit to something that we don't know yet, right? That we don't know how to be loyal to yet. We have to cultivate a new identity as a liberal arts student, and the question is, yes, how do we make that happen faster so that people can get more out of it, and so they don't feel tensions in their identities or that they're at sea without an identity.
Good.
And so I don't mean to put you totally on the spot, but maybe this is going to put you on the spot a little bit, just because Dr. Campolo and I did go to college together, and at the end of college, you actually said I wish I had started doing things sooner, right? You actually ended college with the regret that you were talking
Very
about,
much
right?
so, very much.
That people by the end are totally committed to it and are like, oh, if only I had done it sooner. So maybe it would help people if you shared, like, how did you start doing things? What can you remember how you got on the on-ramp to being more connected to liberal arts opportunities?
That's a great question.
And feel free to ignore it if it puts you too much on the spot.
No, I don't wanna autobiographize much, but part of it I don't know. Something happened. Part of it came from I did not have friends. That's not funny. That's real. I found things to do because I didn't have things to do with friends. Yeah, it worked. Part of it was the people that I was hanging around in classes were interesting to me, and they were talking about things that they had done and gone to. They went to this film, they went to this talk. People would talk about it in class, and I would overhear that, and I would think, what can I do? We were very Greek, our college was very Greek heavy, lots of fraternities and sororities. I did not get in to a fraternity, even though I wanted to. All my friends immediately were off, all my freshmen folks were immediately off in a fraternity. I had to find something to do. I met amazing people, and they were doing amazing things, and that taught me some things. So I think that it was accidental in many ways for me, and I wouldn't have. Maybe it has to be partly accidental, but I'd love to think of ways in which it could be. It really was true when I was done college. Like, can I start this from scratch? I know what to do now. I read the Hendrix today every day. I find out what I can go to. I don't even know what some of this is. I'm going to it though. I'm going to this movie. I'm going to this concert. I'm going to this play. I should have been doing that when I was a freshman. I didn't know. And it took me a long time. And I wish I'd done it better. But my reflection is that a lot of it was kind of accidental. You remember something I'm forgetting?
No, I just think it's nice for you to share because it's not just a student athlete problem, right?
No,
I mean,
no.
definitely student athletes have different identity challenges and pulls on their time, but sort of learning how to identify as a liberal arts student is something everybody has in common. And there's no roadmap for how to do it.
That's right. That's right.
So I think it's good because you weren't a student athlete and yet you still had to find a way to learn how to identify as a liberal arts student.
It's really true and really important to say it's not a student athlete problem. It could be any student problem. And there's plenty of students sitting in a dorm room right now who don't know what to do with their time. And what's going to help turn that switch for them?
I think there's also an aspect of agency here, right?
Yeah.
Like it's part of that switch is like, oh, I can decide who I'm with when I'm thinking about how I'm intellectually playing. And you know, I think about our education system before here, and there is no agency.
Good. All right, so tell us how you do it. No, I mean, I think you're exactly right, that there's a moment, some moment where you have to say, I have to do this, it's not going to happen to me. This is not happening to me is going to be high school again. To really make this something special, I have to actively do it. And I don't know how to make that clear to someone who's never done it. And nothing about our earlier education trains us for doing it. I think that's really true. Now, some of you may have gone to different schools where, of course, you can definitely tell the students who already come in knowing that kind of thing. They hit the ground running. That was not my experience. It's a good point. Okay, other points. Tell me things. Think about this with me.
At least from a perspective of being like, now I'm a senior and I'm a student athlete and I have been all 4 years. And now as a senior, I'm like heavily involved. I'm like exec on several clubs while still being a student athlete and still being I have my major and my minor. It really, I can't tell you the like exact moment, but it was definitely like when I first came in, like it was all like cheer, it was like practice, and I'm like putting away school like class things and other activities. I didn't go to anything really, like any organizations, any discussions like this, because I didn't think I had the time. It really took like drowning in obligations
to have that like moment where you're like, I need to start like having the agency to decide where my time goes and where I choose to put my commitment. You can't put like 110 into every single thing you want to do. Like you have to put your focus in the time that needs your focus. So like if you're doing classes you've done it or something else, you can't be thinking about your sport. Or if you're at your sport, you're not getting 110 or 100 if you're thinking about your classes. You have to know how to manage your time and divide your time while still making the most of your experience and the most of your learning. And I don't know, I think it does kind of come with at least your time here. Like it was a learning experience.
Yeah.
Like as I got older, it gets easier.
Thank you for saying that. I do think that's so important, Jana. And I think that part of what you said is like, God, make a spreadsheet, you know? Get a list. Let's get some time management skills here. You can fit a lot more than you think. You can, you will, and you better. And so sooner is better than later. But part of what you're saying is, I think, really interestingly philosophical, which is the notion of goodness as I gave 110% to this is not going to work for a life that is full of many things. Look, and I can tell you stories about this. Dr. Jones can probably tell you stories about me about this. Trying to like and do many things at once can be a mess. Yeah, and I need to get a lot better at my own time management too. But the model of give 110%, which works so well in becoming a great X player, it's not an easy mesh with a system that is trying to get you to do many things and be open to many things and to be, right, giving 110% to everything is hard to even make sense of. So complicated, but I take your message and I hope that everybody does. You get better at it and it gets better. And now you do all these things. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. A few more minutes here. Thoughts? Yeah.
I was gonna say on your note about getting 110% to as much as we can. Like we only really have 100 to give to everything. Like mathematically speaking, you cannot give more than 100 to everything total. And I think what's interesting about how we like see identity in our like society is that like it's sort of quantified by a bunch of different things. Like, oh, I'm a student, I'm an athlete, and I'm a daughter, and I'm the exec at this club, and it's sort of like a collection of all these little things that you are. And sort of when I wonder like when you take all that away, like what's left right there.
Damn. Way to bring the mood down. Sure. But it's not a math point, right? It's a philosophical point. It's 100% total is what you have. And part of the joy of deeply dedicating yourself to one thing is the joy of feeling huge numbers of that 100% focused in one direction. It's a beautiful, fiery, exciting feeling. It's also a narrow focus. It's a narrow focus, yeah? It's why you want to go to practice, because you know your time is being used in a super intense way there. Whereas if I'm doing 4 things today, it can feel very scattering, even though I'm doing those things. Yeah, how about being a good family member? How about being a good member of a relationship? How about being a good pet owner? How about being a good, wow, how many percent does each of those things get? It's so hard to think about at the same time.
Kind of brings me back to that Yik Yak quote you read.
Yep.
I think part of the problem kind of lies with like reducing people's interests or reducing things to absurdity. And I was kind of guilty of this when I came in because I was an athlete in high school. So like I was able to understand like someone like dedicating themselves or committing themselves to a sport, and I understood like how it felt to go to a game or how it felt to like have people in the crowd cheer for you or just like be part of a team. But something I didn't have experience with was like going to parties, which went into the Yik Yak thing, because I think it'd be like pretty easy for me to say, like, especially coming in, I was like, why would I go to parties with people like getting drunk, you know? It's like it's not really anything like fun. But I was able to meet some people that kind of got me out of my comfort zone. I went to a couple parties and I realized I had a lot of fun in that like the experience you get from like participating in a party or participating in the sport isn't something that can be just like described to you. It's something you have to like be a part of. And I think a lot of the reason there's a lot of friction is because I feel like at Hendrix we kind of have a problem of like not intermingling both sides, I guess. I hate to say like either or, but like I feel like a lot of athletes are away during like Fridays and stuff, so we don't have that many opportunities for them to go to like events with like parties on Saturday and Sunday. And then same for like people who are partying aren't like going to the football games or like volleyball games or stuff like that. So I feel like it just comes from like I guess like a fundamental like misunderstanding of like which each side is doing. And I feel like it's a lot easier to kind of reduce things to absurdity when you don't actually like I guess have a full grasp of what is going on.
Nice use of logic terms there.
Oh yeah.
I think that I think you're right. I think that we do need to know each other better is really what we need to do. Know each other's lives better. And I think that we are not doing a great job of that right now. And I think that greater understanding and greater encouragement of everything would make more of this sort of thing happen. I do think that we've got some structural issues we need to work on. I could spell out a list of things I think we ought to change right now, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is, how do we get people comfortable sitting at a table in the cafeteria that's all baseball players, right? I'm old and I don't feel comfortable sitting, like, they scare me with their baseballness, their shield wall of baseball, you know, like in the shield wall of baseball, that's how I feel. And we need to break some of that up so we can talk to each other again and have like they're all people like us. They're all Hendrix students like us. And they need to know us too.
So, as we've been talking about elements of identity and how like they're split across things and that can be a source of tension. First, in my mind, this is a very liberal arts statement, but it makes me think of like a quotation from a Walt Whitman poem where he references that, we contain multitudes. I think it says I contain multitudes, but like that could be seen by anybody. And one thing that I think there's an opportunity for is trying to like make connections across these elements of our identity where it's like a common feeling. So the satisfaction that comes from being an effective team player can also be felt as being an effective member of a discussion for a book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So like
Yes.
I think about this as a member of a non-sanctioned or non-NCAA sanctioned sport in college, the Frisbee team. It's not why I came here. I fell backwards into it. But those became some of my best friends. And now we don't play Frisbee together all the time, but we do have a book club together, So like we all have these different specializations. Maybe it's a historian or a pharmacologist or whatever. And then we read a book that's not from any of our specializations. And we have these really rich conversations about it. It's not the same as whenever we were playing Frisbee, but there's something similar to it.
Yeah.
And so I think camaraderie, contributing to something that's bigger than oneself, like these kind of flowery words that describe feelings that I think every person in here has felt in some way, whether it's as part of an athletic endeavor or an academic one, or sharing a tough moment with another person in your community. Those are things that kind of branch across identities. And if we can tap into that, right, even though it's not specialized to like one siloed part of identity, I think that helps to build these bridges.
Wow, that's a profound thing to think about. I think we need to work on the ways to build the bridges. I think liberal arts is about offering opportunities for that. I think that part of the excitement of it is the idea that this will go on after college. If you become a lifelong learner and make these connections and become able to connect like this and learn and think and talk to each other, it goes on. The goodness of that goes on. And we want that for you. We want that to grow into your life. We want the Hendrix student to be a Hendrix graduate, right? Also make a lot of money so you can give a lot of money to college. But we'll talk to you about that later. We'll solicit donations later. The main thing is the connections are supposed to last, and you do end up with these lasting connections. Very good.
Kind of off that, I was gonna mention how either like if you are a student athlete or like you're just really involved and you have to consider like cutting things out. I think that kind of coincides with the possible like alienation like from yourself because it's something that you've like done for so long. And also like kind of the opposite, like when you're putting all of your like time and like what you might consider like your work into like your academics or your sport or your clubs or whatever. That's also like very alienating from like the connections we can make in different ways and ways to actually be the whole person.
It's so hard to, it feels, I'm trying to resist considering it a zero-sum game. That is, I'm trying to resist thinking it's this or that. But this is the way it's set up right now, and this is the way we're thinking right now. We're thinking in this or that patterns. We're structured in a this or that way. And the future has to be some way to think both and, not this or, you know? And I mean, part of the answer is, like Brianna, you get better at it. You just get better at it. And part of the answer is we can restructure some things. Let me go to Dr. Scoop and then Brianna.
Okay, so one observation that from my lifetime is that every grown-up I know has been in or near that moment of, oh my God, I'm drowning.
Yeah.
And I can't do this anymore. Right? Every grown-up I know, right? Either they're in it or they will be in it, right? Or they were in it a while ago, or it's gonna happen more than once, right? And I think part of the answer is that we hold each other up when we're drowning. Right, that we're, I mean, if we're focused so much on giving 110% to everything that we're doing, right? I just think we need to be sort of noticing when others of us are drowning and saying, hey, let's go lunch, right? And reaching out to each other in that way.
That's so.
Because I mean, for me, that's, yeah, like the drowning moment will happen. There are plenty of people on campus who have been through a drowning moment of their own and are eager and willing, right, to talk to you. Many of them are grown-ups, a lot of them are your peers, right? It's please reach out, right? On all sides of this equation.
That's
take the risk
yeah,
and
so
reach out.
important. Something that brings us, something we share is we're all freaked out and we're all struggling. And something we can do for each other to help us gain more capacity to do more things is to help each other. And that's an excellent reason to sit near somebody you don't know in the cafeteria and say, who are you? What do you do here? Here's who I am. That's hard to do, but you make those connections, and what you're going to find out is we need about 50 people in counseling services. We've got 3 that I know of, right? We need about 50 as far as I can tell, because we're all going through it. The world is crazy. We're all going through a lot. We're all struggling, and that divides us further. I think that's exactly right. And we are here for each other, but it's so hard to make the move to just grab somebody by the shirt and say, I need something. Help me. Yeah?
On the whole like student athlete thing, and kind of like what Megan said, I feel, at least from my personal experience and experiencing like from a third person, experiencing other people, other athletes, part of it is a sort of identity issue.
Yeah.
Especially those that have done a sport like their whole life. It's hard to engage in other experiences if you do not know your identity outside of your sport. And I'm not saying like a quit, like just you have to be able to sort of detach yourself in a way. It is not all you are. And like you said, a lot of us, this is the end of the line for that like athletic. So like you need to be able to separate yourself in a sense and be like, this is not all that I am. I am not just an athlete. I can be this and I can do this and I can experience this and learn this. And I think that's a stuck point for a lot of people, like a dead end, or what they see as a dead end. Like I can't do this because I'm this sport, I'm this athlete. And you have to be able to sort of, I don't want to say compartmentalize, but like just take a step back and be like, who am I if I couldn't do this sport?
I'll tell you what, and some of you are gonna be angry if I say this, but I'll tell you what I would do. I'll tell you how you get someone stuck on an identity when they first come to college. Bring them here before anyone else and make them room together. Make them practice together. Make them have no other Hendrix contacts because no one else is here. Just that. And then make sure they eat together. and make sure their schedule's together, so if they do study, it's gonna be at the same time, and make sure they have study halls together. Like, I get why that bonding is so important for a team, but also you have to see the threat it poses to the necessary seeing past that we all have to do to recognize other parts of our identity. We are building in structural barriers to that. For all the good that they do, there's a cost. That's all I'm saying. I'm not, you don't have to worry about me doing this. I don't have any power over anything, right? But if it were up to me, one of the things I think about is how do we get people to feel the other parts of their identity? And something about the way we do this doesn't favor that. It sort of favors focusing on the one thing. We don't make all the science people room together, get here early, set up a lab, only they have keys. We don't do that. Imagine if we did, we'd let those fucking chemists. What are we gonna do about them? I'm not sitting with them. They'll poison you. I heard they'll poison you. That would be just as weird. It sounds weird, right? But that's what we do. Okay. I want to I want to get a little past onto the whole person. Which again, who the hell knows what that means? I want to read the actual oh, fine, go. No, don't worry.
Oh, I've participated so well.
Not like Taylor.
Okay.
So, I'm going to read the statement of purpose. This is the worst thing I could do to you right now. We read this. Here's something you don't know. In the worst compromise ever in the history of humans, we used to have someone say a prayer at the beginning of a faculty meeting, all the faculty, big meeting. We used to have somebody say a prayer. That became more and more difficult as we became less and less the same. Because there's a lot of people that don't want a prayer in their life. And so instead, as the worst compromise ever, every faculty meeting, someone reads this. Now I will impose it upon you. And then I'll say one thing and we can have cookies. Statement of purpose. Remember that this comes from the same webpage as the cover-up about 1941. 1941 cover-up. I think it's a criminal thing. That was a beautiful, utopic moment. I'd love to learn more about it. I'm going to try to. 93%, 90% of people. Hendrix College cultivates, make time, so I want you to add up, think about 100% and then assign percentages to these things. Ready? Hendrix College cultivates empathy, creativity, self-understanding, rigorous inquiry, informed deliberation, and active learning across the liberal arts toward the development of the whole person. Through engagement that links the classroom with the world and a commitment to diversity, inclusion, justice, and sustainable living, the Hendrix community inspires students to lead lives of accomplishment, integrity, service, and joy. Think about that. That's what we're trying to get you to see the beauty of as an active thing. And think about what a heavy ask that is. And then you can understand a little bit more about why when you say, like, we're going to be away for 3 days next week, your professor goes, oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. They feel like you stabbed them, right? We're trying to do all this. This is what becoming a whole person is in our current way of understanding it. It's huge. And I want to help. I want your help. I want to help. I want all of us to work together to talk and think about how we can get closer to making this work in a balanced, sane, non-disintegrating way. Yeah? All right. Thank you for coming so much. Thank you for this discussion. See you around. Have some cookies. We can keep talking a little bit.